Hi there, thanks so much for coming along to Celia's latest Photoshop workshops all about menus and panels. This time we focused around the first aspect of those menus in so much detail. That's why we love Celia. As usual, Celia's produced an incredibly detailed guide for this session and one for every session in this series. If you'd like to see more about that, go onto the on-demand section of the website. There are also over 100 future workshops and things that you can book. With Celia, I mean, I joke about, you are the boss, you are the Don. And I've missed you these last few weeks. So I'm so happy to have you back again kicking this off. So please do start whenever you're ready. But thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Feels like first day back at school, actually. I felt as I should have been looking for my uniform and my school bag this morning. Anyway, hi, everyone. It's lovely to be back. Lovely to be working again today. And great to see everybody. This is a 20-week series. Obviously, as Mark has already gone through, they'll all be recorded. You've got access to all of the recordings. Each week, there'll be different resources, and Mark will obviously give you links to all of the resources as we send them out. So what's the purpose of these 20-week workshops? Well, in the last series that I did, I looked at the tool panel and all the different tools that are available. We didn't cover all of them, but this one is to do with menus and panels. And you may think, well, surely that's almost like an introduction to Photoshop when somebody starts to tell you about the menus. But there are so many little tiny things hidden in these menus that I thought it would be a lovely opportunity to do some image editing, to have some fun, to be creative, and to edit our images, but also to explore those different menus and the different panels that Photoshop provides for us. But before I start, I just wanted to ask you all, and I know you're all experienced photographers because I recognise nearly all of your names as they came up when you put things in the chat when we arrived. Where are your image files stored? Just want you to think about that for a second, because it will have quite an impact on the way that the file menu works in a moment. So if you're predominantly a Lightroom user, I'm assuming that you will have looked at your images through Lightroom, having looked at the catalogue, imported your images into the catalogue, and then worked with your Lightroom catalogue. And in order to interact with Photoshop, you're likely to be opening your files from within Lightroom. However, for those non-Lightroom users, in order to be able to view the files that you have captured on your camera, they will need to be stored on a hard drive, on an SSD card, wherever you put your images. And for those of you that want to be able to preview them, you'll probably need to use some kind of third-party preview, such as Bridge. And Bridge, of course, is free. Even for those of you that are going, I just want to get away from Adobe, you can still use Bridge as your previewer for looking at your files, in particular, any raw files that you have. And of course, if you don't use any intermediate software, in order to be able to view your files, you could, of course, use Windows Explorer and look at your files. And Mac Finder has got previewers as well. And we just need to look at those view options. But the reason I wanted you to think about where your files are is also important when it comes to the way that you decide to get those files into Photoshop. I'm going to keep talking, but if I'm making absolutely no sense, then I'm sure Mark will tell me. And if you also think I'm making no sense, then please do make sure that you ask the questions so we can help. So the different file types that Photoshop can handle are many. And of course, the standard image formats that we're all familiar with would be JPEG, perhaps PNG files, TIFF files, PSD, which is the default Photoshop file extension. Photoshop is perfectly capable of processing and dealing with raw files, but in order to be able to do that, it will trigger the Adobe Camera Raw application, which is embedded within Photoshop and behaves very much like Lightroom. And for those of you that are looking for HEIC files that need to be dealt with in Photoshop, these also can be handled, but you will need to install the HEIF and the HEVC application so that those extensions can be handled. I'm not going to rabbit on like this for the whole session, but I wanted to do a bit of an introduction just to get you thinking about files, images, image types. Just a point, because I do teach Affinity as well with Mark. So if you're an Affinity user and you're here just to learn a little bit more about Photoshop as well, you can't directly open an Affinity file in Photoshop. You would have to export it first from Affinity into a PSD or other file format that can be read by Photoshop. Shall I breathe? Any questions?
We don't have any questions, but do feel free to breathe whenever you're ready.
It's not good to have dead lecturers. I will continue to breathe, I promise.
Not at all.
Okay, so Photoshop menus I want to talk to you about. So I've just put this really pathetic little screen grab up because there are Mac users out there and there are Windows users out there. If you're a Mac user and you look at any of the menus that you have in Photoshop, you will of course see that on the left-hand side you have an additional menu, which is the Photoshop menu. Windows users do not have that. And the commands that Mac users see on the Photoshop menu, such as about Photoshop, about plugins and settings, us Windows users have to locate from different menus. Now, the next thing I want to talk to you about. Now, this really is going back to when you first had a computer, people, 30, 40 years ago. When we first had Windows, we had to understand and learn about these hieroglyphics that we found on menu drop-downs. And I'm actually going to go through very briefly what they actually mean, because there's often somebody which will say, do you know what? I didn't understand what that actually meant. So when you look at a menu, and for example, I've got the file menu up on the screen grab, you will see that on the right-hand side of a large number of those menu items, there are the hieroglyphics, which represent the keyboard shortcuts that are specific for that particular command. So to open a new file, you could press the Control key followed by the letter N if you were a Windows user. And it is important that you do them in the correct order. You would hold down the Control key and tap the letter N, because that's the sequence which you are being provided with. Some of the other ones, such as Alt plus Shift plus Control plus O, also require you to hold down the Alt, Shift and Control key and then press the letter O. And for Mac users, you have wonderful hieroglyphics, which don't help at all, which give you also the same symbols. I also want you to look at the Revert menu item on the file menu, because that is activated by a function key. So do look down at your keyboard and just make sure you can locate your function keys. And on certain keyboards, function keys have to be activated with an FN key to make the function keys work. Now, there aren't a lot of menu items that rely on function keys anymore, but certainly in Photoshop, under the Windows menu, you will find a large number of FN function keys, which can help to speed up your workflow. And the other thing, of course, which is perhaps absolutely recognised by all of us now, is that menu items that have 3 dots or an ellipse or the more symbol after them, such as open as ... are never going to carry out that command instantly. They're always going to take you to another dialog box. So if you're ever unsure of what a menu item means when it has 3 dots after it, it means you're safe to click it, because you'll always be able to get out of it afterwards, because there'll always be a cancel or a close option to get out of that. Mark, is this teaching 6-year-olds, or are we okay with all of this, everyone?
We're okay with this. I think the thing to remember is when we do all this is that there's always something to pick up, isn't there? It's the case, just because we use something regularly doesn't mean we thoroughly understand all of it. So I always think this is valuable.
Okay. And then the last items that you'll see on a menu on the right-hand side will be the little triangle that points to the right, which tells you that there's going to be another series of choices coming up. And those series of choices will also have either 3 dots or a set of hieroglyphics, which you can then follow. Also, on most keyboards, there's an escape key in the top left-hand corner. And when something goes horribly wrong, just hit the escape key. It never takes you down a path that you can't get out of. And if anything, it will actually help to get you out of a mess that you've managed to get yourself into. Okay, now, this is a long handout, and I'm not expecting to read the whole handout to you. But because this is the first workshop in this series of 20 workshops, this one really is going to give you the information that you might want to rely on, perhaps, 6 weeks' time. What are we looking at in these particular items on each menu? But there's a sort of a summary on each of these slides, which tells you roughly what you're going to find on each of the different menus. And like any software application that's been designed properly, then you should find that those menu items are all grouped together. So anything on the file menu is likely to do with anything to do with an entire file, how you open it, how you close it, how you export it, how you save it. But at the bottom of the file menu, there are some really exciting things. Well, exciting if you're a software geek like me, which have got things like automate and scripts. And I'm going to be covering those as we go through these different workshops. These are the automate and script section are great if you've got sort of hundreds of images and you want to be able to do the same thing with them in a whole variety of different ways. You can look at these sections, and I'm going to cover those and explain what they all do. And also, if you look at that file menu, what does Open As actually mean? Why not just go for open? So we'll look at things like that. Now, the edit menu. This is the menu that remembers the last action that you've just taken. So when you want to undo something, although we often just hit the undo button or we press Control Z or Command and Z, all of the items that you've just carried out are remembered by Photoshop. And those actions can often be found again under the edit menu. Never disregard that fourth one down called fade. Every single thing you do in Photoshop, you can go back and hit that fade button, and it will help you to blend it in to the way that you're editing your images. All of the AI, generative fill, content aware stuff is also in the edit section. And of course, things like transforming your images and cutting, copying and pasting. There's an awful lot of stuff in there, which is worth having a look at. And obviously towards the bottom, we've got things like our color profiles. The image menu. The image menu is everything to do with your whole image or the whole canvas. And also we'll be looking at what some of those really old menu items, auto tone, auto contrast, auto color, actually do. And the difference between the adjustment option here and the difference between layer adjustments. They look as though they're the same thing, but they're actually completely different in the way that they work on your images. There's some really quite complicated stuff as well under duplicate, apply image and calculations. And for those of you that really want to get into blend modes, it's worth having a look at these image, apply image and calculations. And for anyone that's ever had to set up something like wedding invitations and you wish that you could customize them so that you could send a wedding invitation out and actually have it say to Jenny and Brian or to Fred and Bill or whatever it is, that's what these variables and apply data sets are for. You can actually make Photoshop into a mail merge if you want to. So you can make a fantastic image, but customize it and send it out to 30 or 40 different people. How unexciting is that? Okay. And then there's a layers menu. Of course, that's the sort of the building block of Photoshop. Everything that we do in Photoshop starts with a basic background layer. And then if we're going to do any kind of complex editing, we build up, often using layers. The type menu. I do quite a lot of captioning, labels, little bits of text within my images. And under the type menu, you'll find a whole pile of interesting things. I'm going to cover those on one of our workshops later on. And the selection menu, as soon as you've made a selection using any one of the tools that we looked at on the previous workshop, how do you then transform it, change it, use the pixels that you've selected? Well, the select menu will give you a whole variety of different ways that you can work with selections. Even these little ones down here, grow and similar, are really useful if you know exactly how to work with them. And modify just means that we can make the selection a little larger by a couple of pixels. And we can even make it into a border. There's all sorts of things in here. And I thought if you knew what was behind them, there's something often which is not a light bulb moment, but you think, that's how I could do such and such. Well, at least that's what I'm hoping you're going to say. And then we've got the filter menus. This is obviously my favourite place. Lots of creativity takes place under the filter menu. This is where you can do lots of non-destructive changes to your images, working with the different filters. There's everything from the new neural filters, which aren't so new anymore, to looking at the ones that have been in Photoshop since 1985. But they're great fun. And we'll look at what the menus actually mean and how to work with them. If you've got some plugins as well, and you'll see that I've got some Nick collections, the old Nick collection and the new Nick collection, You can also access a lot of plugins directly from the bottom of the filter menu, providing you've set up your options for the way that the filter menu displays its information. And then you've got the view menu. Now, the view menu is useful for those of you that do printing. You've got viewing options here to be able to looking at proofing colours, which colours you've chosen, what are they going to look like if you actually print that out. It will show you which colours are being recognised, which ones might actually have a colour shift on them. There's quite a lot of different things in the view menu. Important ones like having the rulers switched on. Just get to know some of these keyboard shortcuts. The window menu. This is where those F keys come in. So when you want to activate, for example, the brush settings for any of the tools that you might be using, just hit function 5 on your keyboard. When you want to open the layers panel, because for some reason it's disappeared off your screen, hit function 7. And all of these menu items can also have their own keyboard shortcuts assigned. And I'll be showing you how to do that as we work through the workshops. And for Mac users, you'll find at the bottom of the window menu that you also have one additional item, which is for working with application frames. And I'll get a chance to demonstrate that to you as we go along. And the help menu, again, I know these are Windows commands, and some of these items you will find Mac users under the Photoshop menu. But when we're looking for any kind of Photoshop help, there are some really useful help files here, tutorials which are worth having a look at. Every time there's something new that's introduced to Photoshop, have a look under the help menu. You can find out which version you're using, which plugins you've got, what your system needs in order to work effectively, what the generative AI terms are, and you can navigate to your actual Adobe account and check that you've got the latest version on your system. Mark, are there any questions, or has everybody gone, oh no, that was very long?
There are no questions. In fact, there were just comments about how useful it is to go through these things. And I'm just going to highlight what Orlando said. Sorry, Orlando. But so the PDFs from Celia are better and more informative than the Adobe handbook. There you go. That's indeed. Thank you very much.
Very kind of you, Orlando. That's because I've also read these from cover to cover. And in order for me to be able to understand them, I have to write them in my own language so that I can understand what they're talking about. So thank you for that.
Difference in handbooks being written by software engineers to how people who may want to teach them would write them.
Exactly. So different. So different. Now, you'll be glad to know, people, that I'm not going to go through every Photoshop panel in the same way that I've just gone through the menus. But as I said, this is a reference guide for us to be able to refer to as the workshop goes on. So all the different Photoshop panels, which are accessed from the window menu. Anybody remember what the F key is in order to bring back your layers panel? Just put it in the chat if you can remember. I'd be very happy that you were still listening. So the panels are there so that you can actually organize all the individual tools that work within a particular section of Photoshop. So when we're working with color swatches, when we're working with patterns, when we're working with layers, each of the panels has got little options that we can set up so that they work best for us. And lots of customizations that we can build. Apparently, you can even build your own panel. I decided that was over and above my pay grade for this particular workshop, but you can get software and build your own panels. So if you're looking down through the panels and you really want to know what each of the panels does, I mean, I think they're pretty intuitive, to be honest. You've got a handout here on page 20, 21, 22, and 23. And even page 24 will tell you all about the different panels, and there are a lot of them. And as we go through the workshop, I'll try to introduce at least a couple on each workshop so that we've got an idea of what they do. And some of them are really quite unusual. Anybody use layer comps? I'd love to know if you've used the layer comps panel. Fabulous panel. I've never covered it with you. I've covered it on other workshops. Well done, Jill, F7. So this is also what we're going to be covering week by week, and I'll try not to deviate too much from it. And obviously there's going to be a lot more than just a one-liner. But if you want to have a look to see what I'm going to do, then have a good look at it. So when we get down to, say, week 18, again, one of the tools and one of the activities that I very rarely have time to cover is the paths tool. So this will be me trying to show you how to make the cleanest and most beautiful of selections by using paths. But the path tool is one thing, but the path panel is something else, and really, really great tool to use. So that's what's going to happen week by week. So now let's have a look at the first part of the workshop, which is really some of the things that happen in the file menu. Now I'm going to move my slides off the screen for a moment because I want to open Photoshop and talk to you from my slides. Mark, can you just confirm that by moving that, we can still see Photoshop?
We can. We've got your Photoshop sort of opening screen there.
Fantastic. Okay, so when you first open Photoshop, again, I'm a Windows user. When you first open Photoshop, you get this opening screen or home screen, which will show you the last images that you've worked on, plus the opportunity to use the top panel for starting something completely new. You can also, as I said, look at your recent images. And by the way, I don't like the fact that Photoshop only allows you to look at the first 10 images or the last 10 images that you've worked on. And mine is set to show the last 100, because often if I've been working, for example, I went to a wedding last week and I was editing lots of images, and therefore I didn't want to have to keep going backwards and forwards. So by changing my settings so that I can have 100 images as the most recent ones, that's something that I would do frequently. And I'll show you how to change that in just a second. But if you don't want that home screen, just hit the escape key on your keyboard, and the escape key is going to move all of that opening screen away so that you're actually starting with your completely blank Photoshop environment. Sorry, I actually had, I was on my PowerPoint slide when I hit the escape key, and that's completely and utterly changed the position of where I was on. So let's have a look at the file menu, because when you click the file menu, we've got the opportunity of starting a completely new document. Now, if you're going to work with an image that you already have in one of your drives, then clicking the new button is not the way that you would start working in Photoshop. The correct way to bring an image in so that you can start working on it is to use the open command. But I do see people click on new because they'll click new, which brings up the new document dialog box, which again is worth having a quick look at. It will show you the last time you used this dialog box to create a completely blank screen or image. And I would only ever use a blank image if I was trying to make my own textures, or if I was trying to perhaps design a wedding invitation, so that I start with a blank document and then I bring a variety of different images onto it. But you should never start with a blank document and then bring an image onto it, because you've already chosen all the settings on the right-hand side, the width of the document, the resolution of the document, the color mode that you want to work in. And of course, that can conflict with any of the settings that you have already got within your the image that you're going to open. So please don't choose new document, but I will be looking at that as we go through the workshops. I'm going to click close. So how do you get an image in? Well, you can go file and open. When we click file and open, we'll navigate on a Windows computer to where your files are actually stored. And I just want to look at the files that I've given you for this workshop. So I've given you a raw file, 3 JPEGs, a corrupt file, which is a JPEG, but it has an incorrect extension, JPG-S1. How on earth did that get on there? But it does happen. And there's a PSD file. And the reason you've got all of these is so that we can talk about what's going on in the file menus. Now, of course, you can open a file quite correctly as long as you can find it somewhere on your computer by just dragging it. So I could drag a file and drop it. That would be not very clever, is it? Let me just click the cancel button and reopen my Windows Explorer. And from my Windows Explorer, let me just look at those resources again. So these are the resources that I've given you. And if I want to open any of those files, we can, of course, just drag these directly onto the blank canvas, and that's going to open up that particular file. Let me just close that file. I'll do file. followed by close. But of course I could have pressed Control and W because that's where our options are. I also want to show you close all and what close others do in just a moment, but I'll just hit the close button. I hope this isn't too basic. And the reason I'm going as fast as possible is that I just want to show you and try and throw things out there that might be of interest to you. So let me look at the next option under the File menu. I've got Browse in Bridge. Now, I don't know how many of you are Bridge users, but I use Browse in Bridge quite a lot because if I select Browse in Bridge, it opens up my Bridge application. And it's important, by the way, that if you do use Bridge, that your version of Bridge must be the same version as Photoshop. So you can't use Bridge 2024 with Photoshop 2025. They have to be from the same stable. But these are really great for me because it means I can actually look at my documents. And of course, you can also see other documents, Word documents in Bridge. And I can click on an image and just give it a double click, and it's immediately going to open that directly into Photoshop. So I'm a great lover of browsing in Bridge. Now, what's this Open As for? Well, it doesn't always work, but it's worth a try. So if you've got a corrupt file or a file which has an incorrect extension and you want to be able to attempt to open that file. So here's this file which has got JPGS1 on the end of it. And you can see that the Windows Explorer is not able to locate and tell me what this particular file is. I can click on it, and then down in the bottom of my dialog box, I've got the option of attempting to open it as a Photoshop file, or perhaps I'm pretty sure it might be a JPEG. So why don't I attempt to open it as a JPEG? And let's see if this works. If I click on open, and it has managed to open that file. Now, it's not going to work with completely corrupt files, but there are occasions when people have exported things or you've downloaded something and the extension gets corrupt. And it's worth a try to use that Open As. I don't really need...
Celia, that's so useful to know, by the way. I've never used that at all. That's really, really useful to know. Thank you.
Okay. Right, now let's have a look at... I'll leave these two files open. I'm going to go back to File. Now we've got Open as a smart object. When you use File and Open, the resolution, size of your file is respected by Photoshop, and it will open the file, retain everything it can about the file. But if you're then going to make lots of changes to that file, perhaps you want to scale it down, you want to rotate it, transform it, do quite a few things with it, you would have problems later on resetting that file back to its original resolution and original size. So if you open an image and give it the additional protection of being a smart object, it remembers the resolution, the size, etc., and allows you to reset it without having to go back through hundreds and hundreds of undos or hundreds and hundreds of history options. Let me try to demonstrate this. If I am with this image that I've just opened, what was a corrupt image, if I start to transform it, now I'm going to jump into the edit menu, and I've got some transform options here. Now, both of these are grayed out, and let's have a look and see what the problem is. So anything that's grayed out is telling you that this particular image is unable to have those transforms made to it for some reason. It may be that it is a smart object, but basically we just can't work with it. I'm just going to go over to the Layers panel and just unlock the background of the Layers panel. And let me come back to the Edit menu. Hooray! So when you first open an image, there is a lot of protection already applied to that image, just to give you a safety net, really, that you don't start messing about with them and lose the opportunity of keeping your original image. But let me start transforming this. So if I was to scale it, and I'm going to make it a little bit smaller, and I'll accept that by giving it a tick. Now, if I added lots of other things to this file, I would have difficulty bringing that back to its original size. And also, if I decided to bring it back to its original size, I would be resizing it from this smaller size, which means I'm going to start pixelating it because I'm not protecting it in any way. Does this make sense? So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
if I know that I want to resize an image when I'm working with it, I would open a file. I'm just going to undo this, by the way. I'll go to the edit menu and choose the undo option. But if I was to open a file as a smart object, so let me open as a smart object. Here are all the files, absolutely no problem. I'm going to open a JPEG. It's a file that I've worked on previously, and I'll open it. So the file's opened up. The difference with this is that on the right-hand side in the layers panel, the layer shows this is not a background layer, it's just a single layer, but it has protection on it, which is called a smart object protection. And one of those protections is specifically to do with what happens when you resize a file. So if I use the edit menu now and start transforming it, and again, I've gone down the edit menu, paused over the transform option, and this gives me my pop-out menu where I can get to things like scaling. And this is only allowing me to resize the image. If I wanted to rotate it or skew it and distort it, I would need to select any one of these choices. Whereas if I choose free transform, again, that's got its own keyboard shortcut, that's going to give me the opportunity to be able to put the mouse top left-hand corner. I can rotate it. I'll just tick that to accept it. I'm going to go back to Control and T, reopens it. I can scale it. It'll keep it in proportion because the transform toolbar across the top of the interface has a lock on it, which ensures that the width and height are kept and their aspect ratios are safe. I'm just going to click the tick. Now, supposing I carried on working and added some captions and done all sorts of things to it, but I realized that I really wanted to put the image back to how it was when I first opened it. The layers panel works alongside the smart object, and by right-clicking to the right of the smart object, there's a massive menu that comes up here. And one of those options is reset all of the transform options that you've just been messing about with. And you can do this way down your workflow. So let me just click reset transform. And what it's done is it's reset the last transformation so that we can bring this back, so that the image is brought back to where it was. I'm just going to pick the image up and move it back so that it's sitting nicely on the left edge of the canvas. But the size and the rotation have been completely reset, and the resolution of the image has not been changed in any way, shape or form. So I would say to you, when you're opening your images, if you want to protect them with an additional level of protection, then open your images by using File, Open as Smart Object. Any comments?
Only that this is so useful to see, isn't it? The ability to go back at any point and do that without having to go through the history, I think, is fascinating. And that's the kind of the epitome of the non-destructive edit, isn't it?
Yes, very much so.
Yeah. Does that increase the file size at all because you are retaining that full resolution at all, Celia?
Yes, it does. And I'll try and do a comparison for you
Yeah. Okay.
when I get a chance.
Yeah.
Okay. So And smart objects, as you'll see if you're reading the handout, which you may also have got access to, give you protection from when you're working with filters. So if I was to select anything from the filter menu and I choose to, let me just do a blur because they're always easy to be able to see. So blur, some of these filters are automatically applied because they don't have the 3 dots against them, whereas those that have got the 3 dots are always going to give you choices that you can follow. So if I use a Gaussian blur and increase that Gaussian blur until I blurred it to nothing and choose to click OK, the image is not edited at all. It is in a new layer that's been added through the Smart Object menu, which has given me a smart filter. So if I choose to undo that or carry on working on the image, although the image would appear to have been blurred, in actual fact, it hasn't touched those pixels at all. It's just applied an additional filter through the additional layer that's been added. Right, I will just hit the undo button if you don't mind, because that makes my life much easier for me. But that's the advantage of working with smart objects. Please don't be frightened of smart objects. I know Mark's had quite a few of the other fabulous lecturers that he uses do complete sessions, as I have, on smart objects and what the advantages of them are.
They're well worth watching, by the way. It's such a powerful subset of tools.
Nigel did a session on smart objects, though, and I'm sure that recording is still available.
Yeah.
But we're talking about the file menu, and I hope you guys are all right. When I put this together, I thought, oh, would I want to sit and watch somebody going down every menu? And I'm not going to do every one, but I think I'll pick out the ones that are helpful. So open recent. So the last files that I've opened are now listed. The first one is always known as file 0, and then it goes down until I've got mine set to 100. So how do you get yours to show anything more than 10? Under the edit menu for Photoshop, for Windows users, you will find your settings, which are control and lost me settings. Where's any settings gone? Sorry, that's because
I can hide.
I've had a few days off. Where have they gone? Where are my preferences? There they are, right at the bottom. So sorry, everybody. Your preferences for the way that Photoshop is set up for Windows users are found under the Edit menu, and for Photoshop users, they are found, for Mac users, they're found under your Photoshop menu. And I was talking about being able to see more than 10 documents that you've recently opened. And under your preferences, you will find under file handling. So preferences, file handling. And at the very bottom of the file handling dialog box is the recent file list contains. I think the default is 10, but I've had mine set to 100 for so long that I can't remember what the default is. You can't go above 100, but again, it slightly slows down things like cache and memory as you're working, but so minimally that I think it's worth having it. Happy with that? So that also, when you click the home button, which is to the top left-hand corner of your screen, also changes the way that your home screen performs, giving you the last 100 files that you've worked on. Isn't this a good idea? I did a line drawing workshop with you guys a long time ago. And my older daughter was trying to come up with a wedding anniversary present for our younger daughter. And she said, I'm going to make her a colouring book. So we made all these line drawings of Sophie and Will at their wedding and then turned it into a colouring book. And she's in her 30s, but she absolutely loves painting and colouring. So she then spent ages painting and colouring her own wedding photographs.
What a great idea. And you can combine it with the art workshop on Saturday to make all kinds of things together.
Absolutely. You just jumped in just one split second ahead of me, Mark. Now, let's just go back. I'm going to press the escape key just so that we can go back. I've got 3 files open, and you can see those files are open on the canvas at the top. And I want to show you what we can get from the canvas bar. I'm right clicking over one of these canvas tabs. The number of times I can't remember where I'd opened a file from. This is so helpful. And I'm pretty sure it's exactly the same on a Mac, that you can reveal in Windows Explorer exactly where that file was located. I don't have a Mac available to me, but if anybody else wants to comment and share with anybody, please do let me know. But that right click on the Canvas tab on the name of the file should give you quite a few additional features. For example, you can close all the other files that are currently open. Often I've got lots of files open and I've used them for making composites, but I now want to clear them off the top because I no longer want to use them. So when you choose Close Others, and that's exactly the same menu item that you would find under the Close menu and Close Others, I'm sure you can work out what it's going to do. It's going to close all the files except the one that we're currently working on. So I right-clicked over a hanging plan when I did this. So it's going to be, I'll save the watercolor file and it will ask me what I want to save it as. I'm just going to click Save. And do I want to save the NG? The answer is no. But it will then leave just that one file open. So when you've got loads open, instead of doing Close All, have a look at Close Others. And now, of course, that's grayed out to me because there are no other files to be closed. This one's nice for me too. I finished working, but thanks, Kevin. It is, isn't it? Revealing Finder as opposed to Revealing Explorer. So I want to go back and have a look at Bridge. So I can use the file menu and close this file down and go back to Bridge in order to start reviewing other files. And Close All would allow you to cycle through every file that's open. Any file that's had any changes made to it, you would be prompted to save if you wanted to. Any file that's had no changes would automatically be closed down. So the Close All, Close Others, Close and go to Bridge. Again, useful perhaps. Not all the time, but useful occasionally. The Save menu. Now, at the moment, my Save menu is blanked out because I haven't made any changes to this particular image. I don't particularly want to risk playing about with my hanging plan. So if you don't mind, I am going to close that down and I'll just reopen a document from my home screen. So if I was to make a change to this, let me just add a layer and just grab some paint from a paintbrush. I'll reset my paintbrush with a right click and reset that tool. And that paintbrush is set. Everybody aware of the fact that my cursor is showing as a hair? I haven't been teaching for ages. It's because I've got the caps lock on. A number of times I do that. Let me switch the caps lock off. And now at least we've now got a brush that will be a decent size and I'll be able to see it. But if you've got the caps lock on, let me just show you again, put the caps lock on and it becomes the much more accurate target with the hair cross on it. Very useful when you're trying to do something accurate. Just hit the caps lock on your keyboard and you change the cursor so that it becomes a more useful tool. But more frequently, it's because you've got the caps lock on and you can't see what you're doing. So save. Let me just put some X's on there. So when you hit the file menu, we've got save, save as, save a copy. So save will now just allow me to update that file. And if I was to click save, it won't give me any prompt. So if I click save, it's just going to, the reason it's just jumped into giving me a new file name is because it was that corrupt file. So it's now asking me to confirm a more sensible file name, which is a PSD file. So I will click save on that. But we can keep pressing Control S and save all the while we're working. And that means that we can continually carry on. But supposing you've saved and you really wish that you hadn't made some of those changes, you'll find under the file menu that if I make some more changes to this, let me just put some more of these lines on and do a whole load of other things. I'll work for half an hour on this file and then realise that I really wished I could have gone back to where I'd saved it last time. If you go back to your file menu, you'll find that you've got a revert option. What revert does is takes you back to when you first opened the file or at the last point that you actually hit the save button. So I can revert back and that takes me back to where I was when I last saved the file. When you save a file, where do you save it to? So if you're just using save, of course, it's going to save back to its original location, wherever you opened it from. But often I want to save a copy of the file for a variety of reasons, or I want to use save as. And there's a difference between save as and save a copy. Do you guys know the difference? Would you like me just to very briefly explain to you?
Yeah, I'm always intrigued to know the difference, if you don't mind, Celia, even just for me, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. So let me just tell you what the difference is, and I'll demonstrate it if you want me to, but I'll read it to you because it makes more sense. If you click Save As, it enables the current file to be saved with a new file name. And the new file is then the one that is on your screen that remains open for you to continue to work on it. So you create a new file with a new file name. The old file is closed down at the point that you got to, and you carry on working on a new one. But if you use Save a Copy, it allows you to create a copy of the file, give it a new file name, put it wherever you want to, but the original file stays open so that you can carry on editing it. There's subtle differences, but it's worth knowing what those differences are. Now, the reason I want to save this file to a different location is I want to talk to you about something else on the file menu. So if I click File and I'm going to choose Save As. So where do you want to save it? So this is where I can give it a different file name and I can give it a different file type. And I can also save it to other locations. So in Windows Explorer, I'm able to choose the different locations that I'd like to put the file in. But Windows Explorer also gives you the option, and I'm pretty sure it's the same with the Mac, that you can save the file into your Adobe Cloud account. Now, you've only got so much storage space, but it's quite a few gigabytes if I remember rightly. I'm going to save this one to the cloud. So a dialog box comes up, which asks me what I want to call it. And if I've got folders set up within the Adobe account, I will be able to access those accounts. If you don't mind, I'm just going to save it as the MG file. If I've made a mistake, you can switch back and save it onto your computer again. But the reason I want to save it to the cloud is because I want to show you a couple of other options on the file menu. So I'm going to click Save. So because I've chosen Save As, the file that I'm working on is now, if you look up at the canvas bar, is showing me that the canvas bar has got the cloud location against it. It's also added the additional extension letter of a C, which shows me that it's a cloud file. And a right click on it would not give me the option to reveal in Explorer, but I would be able to open it using Adobe Cloud Account. Now, so this file is now stored in the cloud. Well, it will be when Mr. Adobe has done his job. So let's have a look at some of the other menu items here. I'm going to go to File. Now, Mark, this may be that all of us in the Canvasations community become even more friendly than we are at the moment. Because now on my file menu, I've got two further options: Invite to Edit and Share for Review. Sorry, that sounded as I was talking to 5-year-olds in play school. Why not?
We're all
I've just spent 3 days with my adorable Maisie, so I'm still in that mode. Invite to Edit. Let me click Invite to Edit. Right. So are you guys all aware of this feature? I'm sure you are. I'm sure you are. It's not just me that gets overexcited by a menu item, surely. So who do I want to share my file with? Now, when I share my file, when I click invite to edit, the file has to be stored in the cloud, of course, but the recipient in a moment will be able to open that file, make changes to it, add layers to it, edit it, do whatever they like to it. And when they finish working on it, the file will be returned back to my Adobe account, but with all the changes in it that you guys have made. So I would like to, who has access? Who am I going to add? So I could add Mark at Conversations.
I'll try not to ruin it.
And do what you like with it. Okay. I think you're co.uk, aren't you?
Yes.
And
Yes.
who's got access to it? Well, providing I only want Mark to play about with it, I would select the option only invited people have got access to it. But if I felt that Mark was to be trusted and he was going to share it with everybody in Conversations, we could set this to anyone with the link can comment on it as well. So what fun is that? And if I select this option and I can copy the link, and then I can send that link to other people. So it's a lovely way of being able to share files with each other. The other option, we've also got some settings here, but I won't go into all of that at this particular point. But the other option that is here, which is file and share for review, will also open a dialog box, which allows me to create a link to that file and then use that link and put it into emails or other places where we can communicate with each other so that you guys can share it. So I am more than happy for Mark to share my email address. And if anybody wants to send me files this way so we can test it out, I am over the moon at the idea of us playing about.
That sounds like a recipe for great fun. We should do that for some of the later sessions, shouldn't we?
Excellent.
We'll go for it. What's the worst that could happen? We'll go for it.
My inbox will be flooded.
Of course.
And everybody will get fed up with me because I won't have time to answer them all.
That's a great, in fact, I'm just going to say, this is such a great little feature, actually, isn't it, as well, for sharing just generally for ideas and feedback, etc. People could jump on and do what they would do. That's
Yeah.
really good. Yeah, thank you.
It's obviously, well, I say obviously, it's all to do with the fact that Adobe is industry standard when it comes to image editing. So when you're working in a large organization, images are often sent backwards and forwards between people. I mean, most of us who use Microsoft will be aware of the fact that, you know, all of these documents as Microsoft documents are often shared documents that most of us can collaborate and work on. But Adobe has exactly the same features. Right, we've got 5 minutes left, people, and I just want you to have a quick look at the Arrange menu with me. There are lots of things under File that we haven't got to yet, but I wanted to stop when we got to Share for Review. So anything from Export onwards is going to be covered on other workshops. But I want you to have a quick look in the last few minutes at the window menu, because the window menu gives us access to all the different panels, and we'll be looking at the panels properly as an introduction next week. But the Windows menu also is where you will go in order to have a look at whether or not your options bar is actually switched on across the top of the interface, whether your tools bar is on down the left-hand side, and whether or not the contextual toolbar is on as well. I like all three of those to be on. And if I wanted to open up my color panel, I would just press F6. And there we go. And it's just popped up with all of its mates. We'll talk about panels properly next week. But under the Windows menu, are you aware that these first two options are really, really useful? Because we're coming to the end, I think I might start our session with the Windows menu. I hoped I might just about get to it today. But there's so many useful things in here for being able to create a new window for this image. I'll click new window for the file that's open. I've now got it open twice, which means that I can look at it through two separate windows. I can click the Windows menu and look at it twice, two up vertical. I can have one reduce down in size. I'm going to press Control and cursor down. I can look at that so that I can just see the whole image. Whereas on this side, I want to zoom it right up, just work on a particular part of it, but also be able to see what impact that might have on the whole image. So there are lots of things under the window menu. So I think if you guys are happy, we'll stop at this point and I'll pick up from the Windows menu
Yeah,
and move on to the next section next
that's brilliant.
Monday.
Thank you so much, Tim. I'm going to give you a big round of applause. Thank you so much. It's been so much fun doing this as well. And you are among friends. We are geeking out here. We are absolutely fine to share this kind of thing. We love it. We love it. If anybody would like to put any comments for Celia in the chat, please do so. I'll share them afterwards. But I know we're going to see everybody again later anyway. So this is not goodbye. This is just until the next time. I did have a couple of questions, if that's okay with you, Celia.
Yeah.
I've already sent Kevin a link out to something on Bridge as well, but Kevin said they don't have Bridge currently. Is it worth downloading it as the first path to opening in Adobe Camera Raw and then in Photoshop? Would you recommend that as a sort of a workflow route?
I do, because it means you can, if in Bridge, you can, I can share if you want me to quickly show you.
If you're able to quickly, that's super. Thank you very much, Kevin, for this question as well.
You guys okay? You see my Photoshop screen?
Yeah, we can see that. Thank you.
Okay, so let me open Bridge. Sometimes I want to do almost the same as I would do in Lightroom, which is to open an image, a raw image. Let me just quickly find a raw image. Sorry, everybody, I know it's gone past or coming up to 1 o'clock. Oh dear. I'm not organised at all today. I thought I was really ready to go.
This could be something we could look at next time if you'd prefer.
That's okay. It's here somewhere. It's embarrassing, isn't it? I've still got files stored in my pictures.
Oh, we've all got that. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Okay, lots of raw files in here. So if I select a file and right click on it, if you choose to open the file, it's going to open it directly into Photoshop via Adobe Camera Raw. So it's going to open Photoshop in the background, open up Adobe Camera Raw, and when you finish working in Adobe Camera Raw, it then takes the image directly into Photoshop. But often I just want to edit the images in Adobe Camera Raw. And then when I finish doing their edits, I can close them down again. I don't want Photoshop running in the background. It might be just taking up additional resources. So that third option, to open it in Adobe Camera Raw and to do my changes and then to click done, means that that edit has been done, but I haven't had to open Photoshop in any way, shape or form. So I use Bridge a little bit like most people use Lightroom, because I do all my meta tags and everything in here.
Yeah, super. Thank you very much. Thank you. Danielle's asked a question that I'm going to hold on to until next time, if that's okay, Danielle. John Layton asked a question earlier. Thanks, John. We've used history to move backwards through our edits. We've used Command or Control and Z, but where is the undo button on the menu bar, on the menu system itself?
Sorry, there is no undo button.
Okay.
It is Control and Z, or hit the edit menu and choose undo.
Okay.
Or you use the history panel.
Yeah. And do you always use the history panel as a matter of interest? Are you always using the history panel for the extra control? Or
I have the history panel open all the time.
yeah.
So I don't always use it. I mean, if I know I've just made a mistake, I'll just do Control and Z on the keyboard. And of course, for those of you that use a Wacom tablet, and I think Mark might be putting on some Wacom tablet training, the end of your pen, I don't know if you could, yeah, there we go. So the end of the pen that comes with your Wacom tablet, mine is programmed so that the eraser, when I just dump it onto the pad, is my undo button. So there's loads of ways of undoing.
Super. And dump is a very technical term.
Very technical, dump.
Very. We'll be testing people on that in the future. In that case, thank you so much for coming along today, Celia, and everybody else as well for kicking this off. It's absolutely wonderful. And as usual, if people would like to share this with their friends, please do share the fact you're coming, because this is all built on friendship and recommendations. And we've got people from all over the world here, which is frankly unfathomable. So thank you very much. And Celia, I look forward to seeing you again in just a few hours.
You're very welcome, and I'm looking forward to it too. Something completely different tonight, hopefully.
Take care, everybody. See you soon as well, Celia.
See you later.
Bye
Bye.
bye.